Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the regular council meeting for Wednesday, November 6th, 2024. We respectfully acknowledge that the land on which we gather is the unceded traditional territory of the Comox First Nations, traditional keepers of the land. We have one light item with the adoption of the agenda that we just need unanimous consent for. We are adding Inspector Scott Mercer, who's come in person for our consent agenda on the second quarter report, July 1st to September 30th, 2024. If I can get a motion to add a delegation for the inspector's report. Moved and second, and all those in favor of that addition? Opposed? And that passes unanimously. Thank you very much. And with that, I'll get a motion to approve the agenda as amended for this evening. It's been moved and seconded. Any questions or comments on the amended agenda? All those in favor? Opposed? And that passes unanimously. Thank you. So our first delegation, as mentioned, will be Inspector Scott Mercer, who has the second quarterly report for July 1st to September 30th. You're already at the mic there. Thank you so much. You just have to press until it goes red so those online can hear you clearly, and we'll give you a moment to get set there.
Well, first of all, thank you for allowing me to present tonight, and I apologize if I intruded on the set agenda. I want to congratulate the council for a successful summer in terms of the festivities and the events that you guys had. I hope that my officers were welcomed in terms of their proactive policing efforts that they did that during those times. A few items before I address the quarterly report for council's awareness is that during the month of November 22nd, we are looking to do a speed awareness campaign that's going to tackle a few of our surrounding communities to include the town of Comox. Some areas of interest will be Knoll, Back Road, some of the more prominent areas where we typically get complaints of speeding. Myself and our municipal traffic section will be set up in these areas to do speed awareness. So we will have a light board indicating speed and showing, demonstrating for people to slow down, as well as having some talks with them roadside as far as the consequences of speeding and distracted driving. Pardon me. In December, we are going to be looking to do a candy cane check stop. So this is more of the community initiative that we're doing, less about traffic enforcement, but basically the way that I've set this up in the previous communities is that we'll pick designated areas through different municipalities. We'll have some of our community-based groups, such as our Crime Stoppers, Victim Services, and our Citizens on Patrol that will participate with us. And we'll pull vehicles over, give them a candy cane, and then these respective groups will advise them as far as what their objectives are. And it's kind of a recruitment drive that we do as well. In addition to the candy cane check stops, we will have planned enforcement check stops throughout the month to coincide with the holiday season. On December 6th, we have members from our detachment, as well as other first responders that are going to be participating in a charity hockey game, the Wounded Warriors, in which they'll be playing against the Glacial Kings. Tickets are available at the detachment as well as the Canucks. It's an opportunity for the public to see a bunch of Mounties get beat up by a bunch of hockey players. So I encourage everyone to attend. Lastly, the thing that I'd like to advise council is that we will sadly be seeing Staff Sergeant Corey Kilborn transfer out. He has been recently promoted. He is now an inspector. He'll be in charge of investigative services for Kelowna, and he's set to depart us at the beginning of December. So it's a loss for us, but a gain for Kelowna for sure. Without any objections, I will go into the second quarter report. It's been provided to you ahead of time, I believe. But just to touch on the grace points. So from this second quarter, there were 677 calls for service, which we saw a 97 call decrease compared to last year's second quarter. The most common call for service was lost and found items. There was an increase in alarms and missing persons. There was approximately 11 more than last year's second quarter, and they all pertain or already pertain to a youth residential group home in this area. Common call locations that we saw was an increase in calls for service for the group home, as well as some of our more denser residential areas such as the Seascape Apartments, Quadra Gardens, and Anderton Place. For violent crime, we saw a 48% increase from last year's second quarter, the most common being assaults, threats, and sex assaults. The sex assault increase, there was a notable increase of 5 from the previous quarter. When I dug into the analytics of this, I found that they were individually reported. They weren't predatory or serial in nature. A lot of them have to be historic that were called in. So over passage of time, people had decided to report this to us. There's no really rhyme or reason as far as the increase of it, but we're keeping an eye on to ensure that it's not something that's going to increase from quarter to quarter. For property crime, we saw a 22% decrease from last year's second quarter, the most common being theft of motor vehicles as well as arson. There was 2 notable arson events in which it's hard to say if the same person is responsible for them. But it was the same area that was targeted. We did see an increase in thefts from motor vehicles, but in response to that, I had increased proactive patrols throughout the town of Comox, as well as enhanced patrol shifts, which we paid over time. We have seen a slight decrease from beginning of this quarter from last, so hopefully it made a difference. Property crime was mostly in the dense areas, again, Comox Avenue, Anderton Road, and Glacier Drive. For controlled drugs and substances, we saw drug possession has gone up from the previous year. That's not surprising given that there's the change in legislation, which there is now the criminalization of open use drug use. So that is contributing to the slight increase from what we saw. Traffic, we did see a 65% decrease in traffic related calls for service. Yeah, we typically, I mean, it's surprising actually from summer to summer. Usually you see an increase on stuff like this, but it may just be from the proactive efforts that we had from our municipal traffic services that was targeting Comox area months of the summer. I'm happy to answer any questions that council might have pertaining to this report.
Thank you so much, Inspector Mercer. We'll just check for questions and keep you up there a little bit longer. Questions from council on this Q2 report? I just have a really quick question. I've been seeing more and it's online, so I'm not sure if it's being reported that potentially at the top of Comox Hill, some vehicles have been getting damaged by, I don't know if it's youth or people potentially like throwing rocks and sticks. I've seen like 5 or 6 different people report it, but online, is that anything that's kind of hit?
It's the first that I'm hearing. No,
Okay.
that doesn't mean that it hasn't been reported, but now that we have to, take that to the house, see what calls are being called in, and then correct.
Okay, I think it's something from our table. We need to really encourage people to be doing that online reporting tool.
Yeah.
Pardon? Anyway, well, thank you so much for the ongoing, really great communication that you've been providing us. I know our council's really appreciated the increase in communication and leadership from the RCMP as of the last 3 or 4 months. So thank you for coming in person tonight. Okay, we'll have our second delegation. We have Bailey Walsh, planner with McElhaney for the DP application at 1589 Cedar. Welcome to Bailey, and you'll just have to turn the mic right there when you're ready. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thanks for your consideration today. I'm Bailey Walsh. I am here as the agent for the development variance permit application for the property located at 1589 Cedar Avenue. I don't have a presentation for you today. I know that the report that's prepared by Mr. Turnbull was a very good review of the project, but wanted to make myself available for any questions that you have about the application.
Thanks, Bailey. So for council, on page 74 is the actual report. If anyone has any questions while we have Bailey in front of us, otherwise, okay. Councillor Kerr.
Yeah, thanks. And thanks for coming tonight. Great report. Just question, since the report, has there been any additional feedback from the community, from neighbors? That'd be great. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Counselor. I'm not aware of any other feedback that has come to the table. This project got a little bit delayed just with some of the changes that came in place to the zoning bylaw due to the legislative changes, for Bill 44. So nothing that I'm aware of has come up since the application.
Thank you, Counselor Hazlet.
Thanks. With some of our infrastructure, it's getting a little bit older. Is there any issues with tying a second property in on this parcel to our existing infrastructure?
Great question. It's a lot of questions that are coming up for development right now. I'm not an engineer, so I won't speak to any of those particular specifications. There was a site servicing report that was prepared as a part of the application, and this application before development proceeds will also require subdivision. And there are some variances requested for subdivision as well, not necessarily related to the servicing aspect. But I don't have the specific engineering details beyond what's laid out in the report.
Thank you.
Any other questions for council, from council for Bailey while we have her? Counselor Blacklock.
So would, is this application, would we consider this to be a panhandle subdivision?
So the Comox bylaws don't currently permit panhandle subdivisions for this type of development. So the way that this has been put forward is a bare land strata application with a common access driveway. And that has been successfully implemented in several properties in the community, exactly for properties like this. And that's what some of the bylaws kind of speak to, is that panhandle is generally not kind of permitted for this type of property, but that bare land strata seems to be more preferred.
Yeah, so I mean, when we get to this in the agenda, the question to staff will be, are we going to then offer the ability to do these kind of bare land stratas to people who've previously been denied application under the no panhandle rule? So that's aside from this application. But that was just my own question, is a bare land strata a way to get around the no panhandle provision?
I think we'll save that question for when we're through the application, because that'll be more of an internal CAO wall through to staff, so. Perfect, thank you. Any other questions around the table for this delegation? Perfect, thank you very much, and we'll be at that part of the meeting in about 30 to 45 minutes, so you're welcome to stay or to not stay. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Our next delegation is from Norman and Marcus Lobe, did I say that correctly? Representing the Avatar Property Affordable Housing Policy and Recessed Plaza DBP at 1966 Guthrie Road that we'll be discussing tonight. So welcome, Marcus. And you just have to make sure the mic is on by red. Sure. Yeah, we'll get that running for you. And you'll just, press the button. There we go. We'll wait for the presentation for a moment.
Perfect.
It's the opposite of whichever way it feels like it should be.
Okay. Yeah, makes sense. Perfect. Making me work for it here. Great. Okay. Thanks, Mayor and Council, for having us. Here today to give a brief summary of our affordable housing proposal for 1966 Guthrie Road, and of course be available for any questions as well. We had originally planned to also speak about an item that will be upcoming on a future council agenda. That's a development variance permit for a portion of the retail plaza on our development, but that wasn't prepared for this meeting in the end, so we'll just leave that for another time. So going to the affordable housing, just provide a brief summary of our proposal, and most of this will probably not be news to anyone, but just to summarize, So our affordable housing proposal will include a total of 20 affordable units, of which 17 will remain affordable for 10 years from the date of occupancy on the building. And then 3 of those will remain affordable in perpetuity on the property. And this will all be registered in a covenant on title through a form of housing agreement that after today's meeting, ideally we'll be working with CIO Wall to work out all the details of that. One thing that's worth noting on this section is that we were exploring a partnership with Macola Housing Society. In the end, our property owner did not want a third party involved in the leasing down the road. However, our goal is to incorporate at least some of Macola's policies and their intentions in their leasing policy that they have for when they manage units into our policies as we go forward with renting these affordable units. So we did learn quite a bit from speaking with Macola and hope to incorporate some of the things that they are experts in into our own policies. So in terms of the affordable rent, what does that mean? The affordable rent on these units will be at a level of 30% of median income, and that median income is determined by CMHC. And for Comox, the data point we will be using is the BC Rural Centers. They don't have a specific data point for Comox itself, but that's the closest data that we have. And the specific dollar value of that is $1,150 per month per unit. And so that will be on studio units in our development. It is not directly tied to what the market rate is for rent, but it equates to approximately 34% below what we believe through our market research are the current market rents for studio units in Comox and Courtenay. Again, this is a CMHC mandated calculation. So CMHC will ensure that we are following the correct procedure for this. And we have estimated that the approximate rent savings that the affordable units will provide over 10 years to renters of the town of Comox will be approximately $1.4 million. So a significant savings for the community of Comox. And then in addition to what will be most likely registered in a covenant on title, our firm, Avatar Properties, through the management company, will develop an in-house rental policy that will incorporate additional terms and checks into the rental process. So some of the things that we are proposing to be part of that policy so far, and again, this will be detailed in as we work through it with CIO Wall. But what we're proposing so far are, for example, priorities for tenants to be considered will be as close as possible to the CMHC median income, so that the units will actually be representing 30% of people's median income. And then in addition to that, we will aim to provide priority to, firstly, employees of the Highland Village complex, so the existing retail plaza and then the retail units that will be added to our new development. And then also beyond that, other employees of services and retail throughout the town of Comox. So generally here we're focusing on workforce housing. And then in addition to that, current employees of 19 Wing, and then also senior citizens over the age of 65. And then finally, our affordable units, the plan is to also have them registered on the BC Housing Registry. So they will be able to be identified easily by folks who are looking for affordable housing. So just to summarize overall our proposal, the CMHC financing that we're applying for, which mandates these 20 affordable units, we need that to make our project work financially, a rental project of this type. So since we're doing those affordable units, we cannot also afford the affordable housing contribution, which was previously discussed. But as we've shown, our proposal supplies significant financial benefit and also tangible operational benefit to citizens of Comox. And then we're also going to be working on additional policies to provide that security for the town. to ensure that the affordable units will be provided and continue over time. And finally, we're just keen to get building. So as we've discussed before, we look forward to working through this with the council and getting building. So thank you, and please, if you think of any questions or anything I forgot to mention, I'll be answering questions at the time. Thanks.
Thank you. We'll just ask you to stay at the mic for any questions. So questions from council.
Yeah.
Councillor Mayor.
Thanks so much for all the work that you've done to bring this forward. And thanks for being here today. On the list of kind of preferential preference for the units, I noticed students weren't on there, but I'm sure that's something you would have discussed. I'm wondering.
Yeah.
Did you discuss it, or was it like, were
Well,
they explicitly?
Actually, to be honest, no, but it's a good idea. So that's,
okay.
yeah,
Okay,
I'll make
so
note of that.
okay.
Yeah,
that's
I
great.
know we had previously talked about, although they are building some student housing at the
They are,
college, for
yeah.
example, they're still definitely looking for it. So
Sure.
yeah,
Okay, that's great. And then, can you remind me what the size is of the studio units? Was it between 300 and 400 square feet?
yeah, they're about 320, between 320 and 330 square feet.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
There are questions from council. Similar to kind of follow up what Councillor Mayor said, and it's a comment Councillor Swift has made in past. If for consideration, we can have our volunteer or staff Comox Fire Department be considered from those units. I know that's been, housing has been one of the big needs for our volunteer and paid firefighters. So I think similar to CFB Comox, Councillor Swift made a good point that if that could be somewhere integrated into that housing policy with that extra addition of our fire department, that would be a great addition.
Yeah.
Any-
Well,
Follow up. Other questions while we have Marcus and Norman? Perfect. Thank you very much. And we'll be coming to that later on in the agenda. Thank you. So last but not least, we have our fourth delegation from the Alberni Project Society. We have Louis Bartholomew, or your group can come on up to the mic. And you'll be talking to us about possible relocation of the HMCS, Alberni Museum and Memorial, HAMM. So you're welcome to have as many. We can pull up more chairs if you need to sit. Bookends are good. Bookends are good.
Hi.
Welcome.
Thank you very much for letting us come and speak to you this evening. We're here from our organization, which is the Alberni Project Society, of which the HMCS Alberni Museum is part of that program. And we're asking for the town of Comox in assistance in helping us move back home. For those of you who aren't aware, our museum was located in the Comox Center Mall. First where the little brewery is, and then we were moved across the street where the cannabis shop and the restaurant are. And we were asked in 1979, or excuse me, 1979, 2017, excuse me, to vacate because we weren't classy enough for the new owners of the mall. And so we desperately had to try to find a place that we could afford. We were very fortunate to find a place, very small place in Courtenay. For those of you who aren't aware of what the Alberni Project is, we are not affiliated with the town of Port Alberni. The term Alberni is actually a ship of which we have the memorial for. And it's something that I had started 25 years ago while I was still an American living in Seattle. And I came up during Remembrance Day 25 years ago. And I had a great job and everything. And I came up here as a tourist, unsuspecting. All suddenly I saw Canadians all wearing these red poppies. And it started to have an effect on me. And then I was fortunate to attend a Remembrance Day ceremony up at the cairn at Mission Hill. And I was so moved by how sacred Canadians make Remembrance Day and how they honor their war dead, that I was inspired to go back home to my home in Seattle that night and quit my job, put everything up for sale, and put in my immigration for Canada. It took about 2 years. Unfortunately, we had 9/11 sneak in there in the process. And so I came up, and originally I was only going to do just a website about the 59 sailors who lost their lives in the time of the sinking. From that early beginning, we now have a traveling exhibit, a traveling program, the Alberni Project, which goes to schools, shopping malls, festivals, military things, events, both here and on the mainland. And we've been doing that since requested by one of the survivors of the sinking in 2004. In 2013, with the help of Berwick, we received our first corporate funding so that we could open a year-round museum. And at that time, the Courtenay Mall had several empty spaces, and they provided us with an empty space in which to set up our exhibit at. Our first year, we opened September 1st of 2013. Our first year, we received 500 people by the end of the year. By the time we finally moved out in 2016, we were up to about 6,500 visitors from all over United States, Canada, and Europe who had come to see our museum. We had participated with the Anne Frank House in Amsterdam. We participated with the Chinese military museum in Vancouver. Some of the other things that we have done over the years is in 2018, we repatriated a World War I service medal back to the family in New Zealand and found out who the soldier was, why he ended up there. And with the help of Canada House and the High Commission, we held a ceremony on Anzac Day there, in which that medal was repatriated to New Zealand. A lot of people didn't take me seriously at the very beginning. They thought it was a little high school project. And I have a feeling it sort of was in my head, but it became much larger than what I ever could have done. And it's with the help of volunteers, especially the two that have been here today. We have James Derry, who is our secretary and treasurer of the Nonprofit Society, registered here in BC. And Bob Sackett, who is my assistant director at the museum, is also the president of the society. We have grown. We went from 3,000, about 3,200 square feet in Comox Center Mall, and we squeezed down into less than 1,000 square feet. So needless to say, we have outgrown our location. So it's time for us to start looking for a new location. There is also a situation that I think some of you are aware of, situations that are going on directly next door to the museum that have inhibited any kind of growth or any kind of success in survival of our museum with the current situation and support or lack thereof of certain entities in Courtenay. So with that, that's sort of our little background. That's our situation. We know that in the past years, we received a lot of support from the previous town governments. We also received a lot of support from the BIA and and especially from the retired community as well. So what I'd like to do now is just sort of turn it over first to Bob, and he might have a few things to add to this, and then to James, and then we'll open up to discussion questions that you may have.
Sounds great. You have about 3 to 4 minutes.
Yes, ma'am. So thank you very much for inviting us here tonight. So as an RCN veteran, I know how important this institution is. You know, we get quite a few visitors in, quite a few of them are veterans. Some of them come in and they wander around for hours and hours and hours and talk about everything. Some of them come in for half an hour and they don't say a word until they leave, and then all it is thank you. And you can really tell from their state of being how much it touches them. You know, so I think that's important. You know, while we'd love to relocate back to Comox, it'll also be closer to the water, you know, which is proper for a naval kind of thing, and also a lot closer to Berwick, which does have a lot of veterans. I know when we were at the mall before, we did get quite a bit of traffic from the people of Berwick, and if we were closer, we'd just hopefully open that up to them again. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor and Councilors, taking the time to listen to us. I was going to sort of talk along the lines of Bob on the emotional aspect of it. I do most of the book work and behind the scenes stuff, but in the days I am in the museum, I can see the emotional impact the community has when they come to visit us, because we have somewhat of I'm proud to say, an exceptional facility we've created in our little space. And I think I would really like to return to Comox, be closer to the water. We had a great time here when we were here, and our future, I believe, is in your town. Thank you.
Thank you very much. If you don't mind waiting just to see if we have questions for the three of you. Thank you. Questions from Councillor Grant.
Yeah, thank you. So been through your museum a few times. It's quite a good presentation. I'm just wondering, have you got any dollars that you could put in for rent or towards a purchase, or you know, because I'm just looking around our town and I don't think we as a town own anything we could do that with. So that means we have to go to the public and they generally want some rent of some sort.
Yes, that's sort of why we've come to you for some kind of assistance. I mean, our expenses are very tight. We never receive enough grants to fulfill our function. So the three of us put in a lot of our own money to keep this going, and our hearts are definitely into this for the long run. We would have, of course, have to raise funds some other manner to get us started.
Is there a sort of a rough number that you would have that you could afford a month? Should we find something?
Well, our budget for 2024 was 40,500. We've already blown past it because our landlord has increased our triple net unexpectedly in the middle of the year. Just pass on the taxes they get hit with. But our rent that we pay is $2,630 a month.
Okay,
it is 70% of our budget.
yeah. All right, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd also like to say that one thing that we would need to probably call on the greatest amount of help is to help us find funding for this, find federal grants and such to help us, because after doing this for this many years, a couple of years ago, when we moved from Comox to Courtenay, the museum had moved 11 times in 12 years. And we have one more move left, and we hope that it will be into a building that will be a permanent home. On the 21st of August, we finally dedicated the HMCS Alberni Memorial Wall with all of the names of every crewman who served on the ship at one time or another. We are the official memorial for those men who served on that ship. And with the help of the German government, we are also the official memorial for U-480, the German submarine that sank the ship. So we have gotten to a point to where we have this important historic and heritage operation, I guess, if you will, but we don't want it to just disappear because of running into the problems that we are now facing. Well, a lot of people are facing.
Thank you. A couple more questions around the table. Councillor Mayor, and then we'll have Councillor Hazlitt.
Thank you so much for doing this work and the care that you're bringing to it. I'm wondering if you have approached any of the other museums in the Comox Valley exploring partnership opportunities.
Actually, John Ambler and I formed the Comox Valley Museum Association. And the reason doing is because going back to the nobody taking me serious, I wanted to create an association of the museum since we all talked about similar things, but we never really crossed over. But we actually told a much larger story. However, the community was only aware of 3 museums. They were only aware of the Dinosaur Museum or the Courtney Museum. They were only aware of the Airplane Museum, the Air Force Museum. And we needed more representation from smaller museums, such as the Comox Museum. My museum at that time, it was just me, and the Cumberland Museum, and there were interpretive centers. So we formed this one thing so that we could be all one unit and all. We have other situations that we are facing. Some of them, there are 3 municipal museums. So we can't quite incorporate with those. We're not a D&D museum. We're completely separate from the federal government in regards to what we do. We do get a little bit of support from the Legions, but again, it's something that we don't quite fit into. We're sort of one of these things that just doesn't quite fit into everything.
Councillor Hazlitt.
That was one of my questions as well, was where would you fit with the federal government or perhaps the Legion? Just wondering if you'd had any conversations with the either Quadra or with the base or anyone along those lines that you could perhaps work with for finding a location, but it sounds like you've explored this option.
Well, we've rented Quadra for events, but again, it's that D&D barrier with Quadra and the base that we face. But one thing I think all 3 of us forgot to mention is not only are we a registered nonprofit here in BC, we do have charitable status with the government. And so that hopefully will help us in getting more funding and opens up more grants. Grants are kind of difficult for us in our situation because we have no Aboriginal content to what we do. There are a lot of grants available to museums that have an Aboriginal content or work with the homeless or work with the others. Our topic doesn't quite fit into those categories as well. So we're not desperate, but we're we're holding our breath a little bit now.
Thank you for some of that context, Louis. We have Councillor Kerr.
Yeah, I think a lot of us are thinking similar lines around the table, how partnerships could be explored. It'd really be great to see this information and these exhibits that you've developed over the years continue to be shown in our community. I wonder if like a formal partnership with the Comox Museum and the Courtney Museum to have a permanent display might be something to explore with one or both. And then you take the best materials that you have and you have a display in each of them, and that goes on forever, if possible. Again, depending on the agreement, that might be a way to get you out of your financial predicament that you're in, but also have these materials displayed to the public in museums that people are attending regularly. So just a thought.
Yeah, that sounds real great. Yeah, we're open to anything. In fact, when I first presented this to a few of you during Nautical Days Parade, the idea that maybe we would consider becoming part of a housing unit or something where we take the ground floor and housing above us. We're open to almost any kind of thing. The important thing for me personally, since this was my baby, it still is, and is that it continue, and that what we do with our museum, we're not just a memorial for those 59 men. We have families from across Canada who have brought in their particular artifact from their family, and we are a memorial for that family in our museums as well. The stories that we tell in our museum, we're not a military museum, we're not a war museum, we're a story museum, and our stories just unfortunately have to do about World War I, World War II, the Korean War. Last year or 2 years ago, we were able, after several years, we're finally able to bring the Canadian Vietnam War Veterans Memorial for 2 days to the museum. And so we tell more than just the story of our ship. It's important, I think, to all the families that have entrusted us with their remembrance, with their memories, so that others can learn from them.
Thank you. Any other questions from council? Councillor Grant?
How many square feet would you need? You've cut back, but I didn't catch, like, would 2,000 square feet be big enough, or do you need 4? Yeah.
Yeah, maybe 3 floors.
Okay, thank you.
Square footage is pretty open to imagination of what could be, so. I think that's all the questions we have. So for process, what will happen is this will go on our next agenda for any consideration. And we would be in touch with you after that meeting. So it'll be a couple weeks from now. And thank you so much for keeping those stories alive. Thank you. And you're welcome to stay or you're welcome to depart at your leisure. Thank you. So we're moving on to adoption of minutes. On page 8, we have the regular council meeting minutes for October 16th, 2024 to be adopted. I'll get a motion and a seconder, and then there is a change on those. So that's been moved and seconded. There has been a correction on page 11 to 12. There was a change on the motion. Sorry, I'm not wording that properly. Councillor Hazlitt had one opposition that went under the wrong item, so that's been fixed. Instead of voting against the active transportation grant, it should have been under the B policy of 3,200, I believe. So that was the one small change. Are there any other changes on the meeting minutes for October 16th, 2024? Okay, do I need to make a motion to amend the agenda? Yes. Okay, so can I get a motion to amend for that item to be changed as mentioned by noticed by Counselor Haslett?
Second.
Any questions or comments on the amendment of correcting where the vote went on those two items? All those in favor of the amendment? Opposed? And that passes. And now we're voting on the meeting minutes as amended. All those in favor? Opposed? And that passes unanimously. Thank you. We're now on page 15, the special council meeting minutes of October 2023 to be adopted. If I can get a motion. Moved and seconded. Any questions or comments on the special council meeting minutes from October 23rd? All those in favor? Opposed? And that passes unanimously. Thank you. On page 16, we have the consent agenda. We have items 1 through 6. If I can get a motion for all of those items to be received. Moved and seconded. All those in favor of receipt? Opposed? And that passes unanimously. We'll now pull out individual items if there are any, and you'll just require a seconder for discussion. Any consent agenda items for discussion? Counselor Kirk.
Items 3 and 4 deal with the same issue.
Second.
For discussion?
Yeah, just this is a couple letters we received about the infrared sauna at the Comox Rec Center being down. Just a question for staff, the state of those facilities. I believe there's one in the male and one in the female change rooms, and I'm wondering if there's a fix in the works and how we might address that. Thanks.
Over to CEO Wall.
Thank you. The infrared saunas are no longer operational right now and require full replacement. We have them slated for replacement, or we have them coming to council for approval for replacement in your upcoming budget deliberations.
Will that be in the next like 1 to 2 months then? The budget deliberations before we
Should be the first meeting in December. I think that the price tag on these are somewhere between $40,000 to $50,000 to replace. So it's up to council if you wanted to just say replace them because it's a service you want to continue, or if you want to look at it in the overall budget considerations.
Or preempting that higher cost than we may have expected for repair on that. So if there's any discussion on what CAO Wall, if we knew we were going to do that, it probably could be done earlier, but likely we'll want to go to budget on that. Councillor Kirk.
Just a follow-up question then. So would we be, before we make a decision at budget, if that's when we do it, would we have like a quote from a repair? Okay, so we'll actually know the exact cost.
Yeah, and I apologize, I don't know the exact cost off the top of my head, but it's not a repair. We have had the people come in to take a look at repair. This is a full replacement that's required.
Any other questions or comments on number 3 and 4? Okay, and any other items to be pulled out from 1 through 6? Okay, so we're moving on to unfinished business. On page 45, we have the affordable housing proposal at 1966 Guthrie that we heard a little earlier today. There's a number of items in the recommended report here, starting on page 45. The first item is that third reading of zoning amendment bylaw 1850.43 for 1966 Guthrie Road be rescinded.
Moved.
Moved and seconded. Any questions or comments about that rescission? All those in favor? Opposed? That passes unanimously. Thank you. The second item is that an affordable housing contribution of $763,327 be removed from the schedule of outstanding items.
Move.
Any questions or comments on number 2? All those in favor? Opposed? That passes unanimously. I'll just remind everyone to use the mics if possible. Number 3, that the requirement for a housing agreement agreeable to the town of Comox be added to the schedule of outstanding items.
Move.
Second.
Any questions or comments on number 3? Councillor Kirk. Oh, Councillor Swift.
Councillor Swift.
Might have missed the cue. I was looking that way. Councillor Swift.
Thank you. This is the place then that we would get an agreement for housing for the firefighters?
Is that correct?
That's correct. So the intention is for staff to work with the developer to come back to council with a housing agreement. A housing agreement requires a bylaw to be passed. And so at that time, council will be able to take a look at the contents of it, and we will ensure that there is an option for council to include firefighter housing as one of the preferred tenant selections, and then council can direct us to include it at that time.
Okay, I was wondering, and I guess this is a conversation you can have offline, or if we could guarantee that one of the housing units be available to the fire department.
Yeah.
Ongoing.
Yeah, you can, when the next report comes on the housing agreement, council can stipulate how many, whatever it is that you want to include in there.
Thank you.
Counselor Kerr.
Yeah, actually, I guess my questions will be answered when we see that bylaw. I guess maybe just a follow-up then would be in this bylaw, I presume there would be that stipulation of how the policy as described earlier by the proponents, how people would be chosen through their selection criteria for those 20 units. Is that correct?
That's correct. I think maybe what would be important for council to understand at this stage is that if council passes the motions as presented here, the idea is that staff has direction from council to move forward on creating a housing agreement broadly upon the terms that have been presented to you. So if there's something major in those terms that council wishes to see changed, now would be the time. Otherwise, we're just really just fleshing out the details and getting it to work.
Mayor.
I guess I have some questions for consideration to potentially be included in an agreement like that. So when I think about an agreement like that, I think about building in the possibility for conditions to be changing. So right now, the developer isn't interested in working with a third party to help manage the affordable housing units, but should that change, I would want the agreement to allow for that to change so that they could, if they find it too cumbersome, for example, or too specialized or more work than they were really thinking that it might be, that they could down the road enter into agreement with somebody like Nicola, should the need arise. So that would be, I guess this is kind of a question, like, is this the kind of thing that you're looking for from us?
Sorry. I think what we're looking for at this point is high level is the amenity package that's been submitted to council acceptable. And then we will create the housing agreement in order to operationalize that amenity package. The housing agreement isn't even in draft yet, but the intention of it would be to require certain things like notification, to require tenant selection to be based on certain criteria. So if it was changed from it being done by the developer themselves over to a third party, the third party would just be bound by those same criteria. So I don't see the housing agreement preventing that from happening.
That's great. The other kind of outstanding question that I have, and again, it's about having as much, providing the developer with as much certainty as possible now, while also providing options for changing conditions over the next 10 years and for the life of the building. I still have in my head that it would be nice to have the option for some kind of financial exchange to maybe eventually be able to have more units affordable in perpetuity. So that could be like an option in 10 years before some of those transition out of being affordable, that we could explore a financial exchange at that time. Is that the kind of thing that you could include?
I think council could look to register rights to purchase, but this isn't going to be a stratified building. It's just rental. So I don't I don't know off the top of my head that how that could be secured in this type of building, but I would say that that isn't something to deal with at the housing agreement stage, which will be coming to you in the future. That would be something to deal with now and say, well, we want something different in the overall amenity package.
Okay, that's okay. I can let it go. Thank you.
I was just gonna say too, that I don't think
Correct.
CMHC will allow that in their financing package, so I would think that you could actually do that.
It's a good intent, but potentially too complex. Other questions while we're on number 3? Councillor Blacklock.
Just when we're talking a housing agreement, we're talking about gearing rent to income, medium income. 30% of median income. I think and I'm sure you'll think of this when you guys go through this together, but is there a mechanism or there should be a mechanism to prevent 2 people applying for tenancy and only one set of income be used, right? So I'm trying to avoid the situation where 2 people, one with a high paying job and one with a low paying job, apply and use the low paying persons to qualify, and yet both live there. So what is the mechanism that would we use to check income of all parties living at the address?
That's a good question. I don't know. That's something that we'll have to explore as we get into the housing agreement. Given the size of the units, there might be a restriction that it's only just one person. I don't know.
I believe if they're looking at policies like McCullough too, they have, I believe, policies on how to check those things, but I don't know what they are. It's a good point. Yeah.
I would imagine that we can check with those third-party housing providers, but I imagine it would be part of your MOAs or your tax data to the landlord.
Other questions from council on number 3? Okay, so we're voting on number 3, that the requirement for housing agreement agreeable to the town be added to the schedule of outstanding items. All those in favor? Opposed? And that passes unanimously. Thank you. Number 4, that the Comox zoning amendment bylaw 1850.43 1966 Guthrie be given 3rd reading.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Questions and comments on 3rd reading? All those in favor? Opposed? That passes unanimously. Thank you. Number 5, that administration be directed to prepare a housing agreement agreeable to the town as an alternative to the developer providing the affordable housing contribution identified by Council's Affordable Housing Amenity Contribution Policy CCL-069.
Second.
And seconded. Any questions or comments on number 5? All those in favor? Opposed? That passes unanimously. And lastly, we have number 6, that the housing agreement be brought back to council to be considered as for consideration as a bylaw. Moved and seconded. Any questions or comments on number 6? All those in favor? Opposed? And that passes unanimously. And thank you again for coming this evening and answering our questions over the last couple months and getting us to this stage. Thank you very much. We're excited to get it started building. Just finding my place here. So we are on page 53 under bylaw adoptions. We have bylaw 2033 for revenue anticipation borrowing for 2024. That bylaw number 2033-2024 be adopted.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That passes unanimously. Thank you. Bylaw 2034, revenue anticipation borrowing for 2025. That revenue anticipation borrowing for 2025, bylaw 2034 be adopted.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any questions or comments on bylaw 2034? All those in favor? Opposed? That passes unanimously. Thank you. We're now under new business. On page 57, we have the 2024 audit service plan. That the audit service plan is attached for the November 16th, 2024 staff report be received. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That passes unanimously. Thank you. We're now on page 74, DVP 24-1 for 1589 Cedar Avenue. Development variance permit application to permit a 2-lot single family subdivision for approval and to issue a permit. I believe we have some questions, but I'll get a motion and a seconder. Moved and seconded. Questions or comments on 1589 Cedar Avenue? Councillor Blacklock, did you want to ask the question from earlier this evening?
I think if we're going forward from this point and we're approving a variance like this, then we owe it to the people who were denied panhandle subdivisions to go back to those same people over the last 10 years and tell them that, you know, they are now eligible to apply for a Bearland Strata subdivision. That's all I'm saying.
Sounds good. We'll go over to staff and then Councillor Grant, but I believe they always have been able to do a Bearland. But there possibly could be some sort of communication. You're looking at like there's some history, so I'll go to CAO Wall and then we'll open it for any discussion for historical references around the table on this.
I'll pass it over to our Director of Development Services.
Through the chair to Councillor Blacklock, in the OCP under the ground oriented designation, fee simple panhandle lots are only permitted if site constraints, topography, or the nature of existing development are not conducive to Bearland Strata subdivision. So it does encourage Bearland Strata subdivision. So we will go back. My understanding is that in 2017, there was a similar proposal as this that was approved as a variance. We can go back and I can have my team look into making those people aware that they're welcome to apply again. But just another comment, we are going through a new OCP process, so we can look at panhandle lots and Bearland Stratas because I personally have not seen a two lot Bearland Strata subdivision of this configuration. So perhaps a panhandle does make more sense, but that can be looked at in more detail through the OCP.
Yeah, thank you for that. I mean, my preference would be to create and have the ability to create two titles, 2 land titles. It makes it much simpler. The fee simple versus the Bearland. I think that there's advantages and disadvantages either way. So with the Bearland Strata, one of the disadvantages is a higher cost. You're looking at a higher survey cost, higher legal costs. With the fee simple, those fees are lower, but with respect to creating a new title, they both do that. So you know, either way, I'm just thinking of instances in the past that were denied and Bearland Strata was not brought up as an option. So I do have those for you and I'll address those with you offline.
Councillor Grant, did you have a question?
No, I was
Just
just
use your mic.
gonna comment. I'm sorry, I was just gonna comment that this has come up before for sure. Our former planning staff didn't like the panhandle lots. I'm not 100% sure. I can't remember exactly, but it was brought up in many cases. And I think a lot of those bigger lots on Rob Road and stuff is where we used to see that, where they have great big backyards, but they can't access them and they couldn't get a panhandle. So to me, it made sense to do it that way, but perhaps it's a question of the OCP that we should maybe address and talk about. I can't remember what the issue was with the panhandle piece, but it was always discouraged. So
I have no issue with this application as it is, but I just have a question. When we do Bearland Strata, how does the Bill 44 relate? Because I know in some you had to only have a certain number of suites and an affected number of units. So when it's a Bearland Strata, do both properties, if they're large enough, still allow up to 4 units, or does it kind of take away that Bill 44 legislation when it's a Bearland Strata? You can also go offline if needed because it's not pertinent to this application.
To your worship, my understanding is you would still be able to put 4 units on each of those Bearland Strata lots. I'm not sure if the strata will have their own language around preventing that, but from a town perspective, you would be able to put 4 units on each of those lots.
Okay. I was just curious about the negative aspect, but it sounds like that's not there. Any other questions from council before we vote on this DVP permit? Okay, All those in favor? Opposed? And that passes unanimously. Thank you. We're now on page 123, the flag protocol and community events recognition policy. There is 2 items here that the discontinuation of the community events recognition policy CCL 059.03 as attached to the October 22nd, 2024 report from the Director of Corporate Services titled Flag Protocol and Community Events Recognition Policies be approved. So
Move.
again, that's discontinuation. Any questions or comments on number 1? All those in favor? Opposed? And that passes. And the second item is that the draft flag raising and flag protocol policy CCL 058.03 as detailed in the October 22nd, 2024 report from the Director of Corporate Services titled Flag Protocol and Community Events Recognition Policies be approved.
Move.
Moved and seconded. And any questions or comments on this? Councillor Swift.
Thank you. I think we need to draw our attention to 6.02C, where it is talking about flying a flag at half mast from the notice of death until the date of the funeral. And I brought this up before, but funerals are not that common these days. And I'm wondering if we would be better off to define a time period, a week or 10 days or whatever would be appropriate.
Thank you for pointing that out. I recall you mentioning that before, and it made a lot of sense as it could be 6 months later or not have a date. So potentially that's maybe we'll see if there's any other questions and we'll go back to what the proper wording could be unless you have a suggestion, but we'll go to other questions and come back to that. Oh. Wordsmith. Do you have a suggestion? Sorry, Councillor Swift. I cut you off there.
I don't have a strong feeling on it. I was going to suggest a week. 7 days.
Oh, because I'm.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point. And actually, we ran into this issue earlier ourselves in operationalizing this. So I think it maybe in the case of other persons, flags we've flown at half mast from the date the notice of death is received until or for a maximum of 5 business days. If council would have to make a motion to amend the policy.
I think that's a great suggestion. Councillor Swift.
I'd like to make that a motion.
Perfect. So that motion has been made for up to 5 business days on 6.02C. Any comments before we vote on that amending 6.02C? Okay, all those in favor of changing it to up to 5 business days or 5 business days, sorry. 5 business days. 5 business days. All those in favor? Opposed? And that passes unanimously. Thank you very much, Councillor Swift, for that. Other questions or comments on the policy before we vote on the amended policy? Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? And that passes unanimously. Thank you. Just going to find this. We are on page 133, the lease renewal for the Vancouver Island Regional Library Board. There was the lease for 5 years provided from January 1st to December 31st, 2029, as attached to the November 6th, 2024 report titled Lease Renewal Vancouver Island Regional Library. You can get a motion.
Move.
Moved and seconded. Any questions or comments on the lease renewal that has been provided and is to be authorized to execute the agreement from the Mayor and Council? All those in favor? Opposed? And that passes unanimously. Thank you. And thanks to Corporate Services for getting that over to us, signed with Vancouver Island Library Board. We're now on page 159. There is a report to talk about making back roads safe. That council waive traffic calming policy CCL 05-051 and direct staff to reduce the speed to Glacier Drive at 40 kilometers an hour, which matches what the city of Courtney is doing on their portion of the road.
Move that.
It's been moved and seconded. Any questions from council on reducing the speed to 40 kilometers along that shorter piece on Back Road, Glacier View Drive? Councillor Hazlet and then Councillor Blackwell, please.
How long does it take to implement that?
Over to CAO Wall.
It shouldn't take too long, but I don't have the team here to answer that question. Sorry.
I'm just thinking if the RCMP has mentioned that they're going to be on Back Road, that might be a great time to. But we're not decreasing the speed limit down to 40 kilometers an hour.
Yes.
That's in 16 days, I think. So the good thing is when we report back to the region's been really advocating on that, we'll be able to say that's coming as something that's I'll report out on that November 22nd date if this passes. Councillor Blacklock.
I just was gonna say, if has anyone checked in on KFN as well to make sure the signage on through their portion of Back Road is also changed?
We have been talking about this for over a year. It's probably come up at 5
They're on
meetings.
board.
They're very supportive of the challenges. We've gone to Modi, the Minister of Transportation, and they are just not answering any of our joint letters from the regional district, the 3 municipalities and First Nations.
I'm just trying to avoid a situation where we would have 40, 50, 40 going along
Of
there,
course.
right? So,
Anything within the control of Comox First Nation would need to have it match and be 40. I don't know the exact logistics of that, but they're very supportive of trying to calm traffic as much as possible in this area.
So it will be 40, 50, 40 until MOTI takes a look at it and makes changes. This may be further pressure on Modi to recognize the requests that have come in from the municipalities in the valley, or the local governments in the valley, I should say, as well as KFN.
We can teach them a thing or two about fake speeding signs. Any other questions or comments on the lowering of the speed along Glacier View Drive and waiving the traffic calming policy? Councillor Blacklock.
I'll just remind those who were not in the town that the history of the Dyke Road, the Comox Road through from Comox to Courtney, that's one time when I was a child was 70 kilometers an hour. So we're making progress in the right direction.
That seems wild now. One question over was there was a couple of different suggestions in that area. And so staff has come back and said that's kind of the key one. But for now, there won't be any like flashing lights or anything else installed on our smaller portion. City of Courtney's done some other items, but they do have a bigger. So this is going to be the item that we're going with, just to confirm.
Correct. We, on our section of the road, we have traffic calming measures installed already. In the last analysis, that the speed on that road did not meet the criteria for any other traffic calming measures or a reduction in speed, which is why council is being asked to waive your traffic calming policy.
Okay, that makes sense. And with partnership with the police actually doing speed checks in that location, that will hopefully do some of the trick. Any further questions before we vote on page 159? Councillor Blacklock.
One more point about speed reductions is you'll remember that Courtney did the pilot project in Crown Isle to reduce the limit on Crown Isle Boulevard from 50 to 40. And the results and metrics of that pilot test project was that speed did not change, but the perception of public safety did. So that is also a good thing.
Speed went down 1 to 2 kilometers and people were very happy. Yes. All those in favor? Opposed? And that passes unanimously. And so that will be executed at the first availability that it is able, along with the sewage conveyance project. There are no notices of motion, no correspondence, no late items. We will do reports from council, but I'll just have you put up your hand if you have any. We're going to do a little different this time. If you have any updates or education from CVRD or boards, there were a ton of events in the last 3 weeks, lots and lots of events. So if you have something, put your hand up, we'll go around and we'll just do any council updates that are educational or new information. Counselor Blacklock.
This is just a reminder of future events. Council is all invited by the BIA to attend the mixer next week at the Castaway Bookstore, formerly known as Nearly New Books. And as well, we are having there's a business roundtable with the mayor coming up too. So I've sent you all invitations for that. So make sure you have a look at those and join us if you can. That's it from me.
Thank you. Other updates from council. Counselor Kerr.
I'll be quick. I have a couple of updates. First, kind of a big news story from the Comox Strathcona Waste Management Board. It's a joint board between Comox Valley and the Campbell River region and north. So it was a emission reduction strategy was approved at the last meeting, and if you look at the graphs, 97% of all waste related greenhouse gas emissions are from landfill emissions that aren't captured. And there was an approval, for 10 automated wellheads for the landfill gas system. And that's going to cut over 18,000 tons of CO2 emissions by the end of 2025. So to put that into perspective, that's like 15,000 return flights to and from Toronto from Vancouver. So it's a really huge reduction in CO2 emissions and something being done locally that's kind of leading the way here in the province. So something to be proud of. On some not so good news from the Physician Recruitment Committee, you may have heard recently that although we've been doing well with our physician recruitment, we do have a retiring physician and one that's leaving town kind of urgently. So that's leaving some people without a family doctor kind of in the near future. But the good news is we do have 2 new family doctors that are coming in 2025. So there's going to be a bit of a shortage here for probably about 6 months until they start up. Just a quick note of congratulations. I attended the Comox Valley Social Planning Society meeting yesterday, and the annual Bunny Shannon Heart of the Community Award was awarded to April Lewis. April's from Hornby Island, and she's been very involved with their community school. And also just finally a big thank you and congratulations to Ash and the planning committee for the Diwali festival. That was on Sunday that many of us attended. It was a great event, and hope to see it again in the future. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Any other items from council? Okay, I'm going to go through my list quickly and try for education only. CAO Wall and I met for a second time with the Comox First Nation Chief Price and their council to kind of go over some joint initiatives that we were hoping to achieve. They have their next election in 2 to 3 months in January. So we did highlight some key projects, which I'll go over really, really quickly. The park naming at DL 194 up by the Northeast Woods, which they took, they're giving a 99-year lease back. It should be named hopefully in December, January. We're going to do a community event, and that's something we're hoping to bring our councils together for and celebrate with an event and some signage. And so that's kind of a top priority. The fire truck, we're going to do forgetting the word, but an expression of interest to get some potential First Nations art on our new fire truck. There'll be a panel that Chief Schreiner has offered for that piece. And a couple other things, but mostly around future signage, future art installation, and back road during the sewer conveyance project, as well as just general back road glacier view safety. So a couple key things that just keep coming up on that. CAO Wall and I met with Island Rail Corporation, which is a corporation IRC that is looking to give 51% of the railway, if they were able to be successful, back to the First Nation and run a cargo/passenger rail from Victoria to Port Alberni up to Port near Campbell River. This is all very conceptual stage, but it was a interesting meeting to learn about what this group is trying to achieve. Of course, right now it's with the provincial government and the ICF, Island Corridor Foundation, but interesting to see what different groups are doing to really try to evolve Vancouver Island commuting or transport. I just want to quickly shout out to the downtown BIA, the Comox Fire Department, and the Comox Community Center for making Halloween a huge success. The fire department sold out of hot dogs, so they were nice and busy. Downtown Comox was really busy, and then the Comox Rec also did events. So thank you so much for town making Halloween so much fun. Quick shout out. I know a lot of people were involved in the telethon, the 49th annual telethon this past Sunday, same day as the Diwali Fest. They raised 115,872, which was an amazing number. Just got that from their website updated. In past years, they've had like $50,000 donation, huge donations to get up to about 130. And to see them achieve 115,872 is amazing. And I know a lot of you participated in that, so thank you. Councillor Hazlitt and I went to a veterans lunch at the Comox Legion this past week or so, a week ago. It was a multi-hour, half-day, I would say, event, and it was really great. It was veterans from the whole Comox Valley that attended that. And it was a really nice event. So thanks to Councillor Hazlitt and the Comox Legion for inviting us to attend that. And there's a couple other things happening. Just really quickly, I want to thank the BIA for doing some downtown Comox opening. We welcome 2 new businesses, Wildflower Mercantile and Rome Retail Media into our downtown. We did a ribbon cutting probably about 2 weeks ago now, but I think that's a nice tradition. We got that may be also a new one. Okay, so another new business. I know there's another 1 or 2 coming soon. I'm not told, but I'm told they're exciting retail, vibrant businesses. So trying to follow our policy and get out of the way in downtown. There's lots of people in the background doing really great work, trying to get our downtown to be changing, and the 2 or 3 new businesses that we know of that have come in the last month are really like fun new businesses if you go in and take a look or need Christmas shopping or holiday shopping. So thank you for the work that our downtown BIA is doing. We have the light up of the paths, maybe still secret tomorrow. So thank you to these groups that are working really hard on behalf of our community. And I will now at 6:22 make a motion to go in camera. Sorry, are there any questions? My apologies. Any questions from the public? Of course. You just have to come up and then just state your name and then you have a question.
I'm Carol Finley and I live on Fulford Avenue in Comox. And I had written a letter a couple of weeks ago to the council, or within maybe it was a week or 2 ago. And it's in connection with City of Courtenay allowing their residents to exchange the garbage carts for free until the end of the year. And my question was will there be a consideration for Comox residents to have that same option? I did receive a response from the clerk from the town of Comox that my letter would go potentially on the next agenda item. So anyways, that's what I requested.
Thank you. And I apologize, I didn't see you behind the stand there, but
That's
thanks for the question. I'll hand it over to staff. We do have a program for cart exchange, although it looks a little bit different from the City of Courtenay's cart exchange program. But over to CAO Walt to answer.
I mean, it would be a decision for council how you want to fund the card exchanges. We need to pay Mterra for every card exchange. So what the town of Comox is doing is charging the residents who are making the change. The City of Courtenay may be waiving that fee for residents, but they're still paying it to Mterra. So it's being paid out of some revenue fund. Council could do the same thing, but you'd have to choose where you're going to be paying it from.
And I think what I read in the local newspaper was that that would only be free until the end of 2024. So
I think I looked also, and their fee is more expensive, but they're doing free first. So I think it's kind of it's too bad that they're being done in 2 different ways, but their cart fee is actually going to be more expensive than ours, but they have this short period where it's free. So I just took a quick look. Your email is set to be on the agenda for November 20th. So at that meeting, there's potential that we have a discussion around what ours looks like and what City of Courtney looks like.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
Letter.
So when you say fee, do you mean, well, it depends on the way I understand it in Comox, it's the size of your cart is what you will be charged for your annual cost of that. So the bigger the cart, the more you'll be charged. That makes sense. But is that what you mean by fee?
There's an actual exchange fee. I think it's 35, but it might be $50. I've had people call in and ask questions. There's a form on the website that kind of shows, depending, because everybody potentially has different size carts, be it a suite or a townhouse, etc. But there's basically an exchange fee at the time of exchange.
Yes, I was aware of that. I think it's $35 per cart.
That's
What I meant by the fee was, if you have the biggest cart, which I think was 360 liters, then you get charged X amount of dollars per year for that, as part of your taxes or your utilities. And if you have the medium-sized one, it's a lesser amount. But I just wanted to clarify what you meant by fees, but I think you were talking about the cart exchange.
Yeah, I thought the question was around the cart exchange fee, but the actual taxation property tax amount, I'm not sure if staff can comment on that.
Sorry, you have it correct. That's correct.
So potentially could be beneficial if you don't need bigger sizes. But there is some good information online, and the front desk can also help kind of with the.
Yes, thank you. Thanks very much.
Thank you. And again, it'll be on the November 20th. We've had a starting discussion now, so thank you. Thank you. Councillor Blacklock, did you have? Okay. Any other questions from the public? Thank you for coming this evening. There's no questions from the media, so I will make a motion to go in camera at 6:26. All those in favor of going in camera? That is unanimous. Thank you. Everyone have